Hello and welcome to Pathways, where you are invited to join me for a visit with leaders in personal development and cultural evolution. This is your host, Paul O'Brien. Today we're going to talk about shame. And as we shall see, shame is more than feeling. It's more than a feeling. It's more than feeling guilty, sad, or responsible. It develops when we experience a trauma but can't access the tools or freedom to express how we feel, or are denied the ability to ask for the care we need. This show is about how to bring shame out of the shadows, to get to know it and listen to its wisdom without minimizing our traumas or pathologizing our experiences. Today's guest offers practical tools and exercises to dismantle the narratives that hold us back from living our lives whole, free, and in alignment with our most authentic selves. Our guest today is David Bedrick, author of the book, The Unshaming Way, A Compassionate Guide to Dismantling Shame. David is a speaker, counselor, and attorney. He was an adjunct faculty for the University of Phoenix and the Process Work Institute in the U.S. and Poland. He is the founder of the Santa Fe Institute for Shame-Based Studies, where he offers facilitation training to deepen the skills and awareness of therapists, coaches, and healers, as well as workshops for individuals to further their own personal development. He is a writer for Psychology Today and the author of Talking Back to Dr. Phil, Revisioning Activism, and You Can't Judge a Body by Its Cover. Well, hello, David, and welcome to the Pathways Show.
Hey, Paolo, good to spend some time with you. Yeah.
Now, in our pre-show chit chat, you revealed that you have some familiarity with Portland, and I'm wondering if that has to do with the Process Work Institute.
It did. I moved from, where was I? I moved from Minnesota, where I was living, and went to graduate school to Portland because of the work of Arnold Mindell,
Right.
and the way he
Yeah.
looked at physical symptoms as having messages and meaning and intelligence.
And that's so relevant to the work that you were writing about in this book on shame. And what brought you to specialize on shame specifically?
Like for many people, it grew out of my native gifts and my story, right? You get a story and it demands the gift that you have to be alchemized, to be made something out of. And I grew up in a family where my father was brutal and violent. He used fists and belts and moods and things like that to make an abusive and scary atmosphere. That was not so yummy. That should be named. And it was abusive and things like that.
Um,
And
it,
I had a mother who was in big time denial about that, even though it happened in front of her. So she would say, "Your father would never do that. Why are you saying that? He loves you." And I spend a
right.
long time dealing with how that father lives in me, his brutality as in me and what the effect. But then the person who doesn't believe me, I take that in. So then you mistreat me and I think, well, you're a nice guy. You would never do that. Why am I so upset? I do the same. I mother myself, you could say, by denying and dismissing, gaslighting my own experience. So I started studying that as a kind of shame.
Yeah. It's so epidemic. The disrespect and violation of our bodily integrity is almost epidemic. That's a quote from your book, especially for children.
Yeah,
And you point out men are so accustomed to overriding these boundaries that shame leads them to lose touch with their feelings entirely. Such,
totally.
such an
Totally. I was
epidemic
thinking of a
problem.
man I was working with, in
And
fact.
then you go on. You
Right.
go on to say a common viewpoint says growing, healing, and developing ourselves takes place by determining what's wrong with us, what our symptoms are, physically or emotionally, and fixing or removing them. And this is an ever-present lens. Boy, that's that inner critic. This is what's supporting what you call the shaming witness. So why don't we start there? What is this? What do you mean by shaming witness and the unshaming witness?
The shaming witness looks at your experience and says, you get nervous, let's say, and I say, "What's wrong with you? Calm down, meditate, drink chamomile tea." That's not a bad thing. I like chamomile tea and I like to meditate. But your nervousness may be intelligent. Maybe you know that something disturbs you about me. Maybe there's energy in your nervousness that wants to go into a deep topic that's forbidden and you want to break ground. So that nervousness may know that it might not be something to medicate, chill out, remove, release. It may be the very intelligence that makes our interaction the best that it can be.
Right. And so
Mhm.
we miss a lot. We miss a lot when we shame ourselves
Yeah,
or let ourselves be shamed. We
yeah,
don't get to learn from the feelings that we're trying to medicate, or
yes.
does that sound accurate?
That's exactly right. And we don't get access to our power and truth telling capacity. So when I was a
Right.
kid living in that family, I was over my head. I tried to speak up and have things not stop things. That didn't interrupt my father's violence, and it didn't wake my mother up to, oh my shit, God, this is bad, right? So my body did something really incredible. It got stomach aches so freaking bad that my parents had to take me to the hospital. So now most people would say, oh, that's bad. And that's true, and have compassion for me as a child. That's appropriate. And here's what's missing from that narrative. My stomach was so powerful, it could interrupt the entire atmosphere. It could stop everything. Everything, this is a problem. It needs healing. It needs addressing. Father stops, mother stops. Everything attends to the difficulty. My stomach could do that. I'm not thinking that. I'm not trying to make myself had stomachs, right? The body itself does that. And in that way, the body knows something that I don't even know. I'm thinking, maybe it's not that bad. My stomach's going to the hospital. It's an emergency, right? And I'm kind of thinking, I don't know. I'm pretty powerless. My stomach says, not me. I'll stop the whole freaking thing. So then
Right.
later on, when I have stomach difficulties, I have what people call irritable bowel syndrome, then I don't think of it, oh, that's only bad. I should be careful and eat certain things and not drink too much coffee. I get that. But my stomach is an ally, you see. It's a barometer. It says, whoa, slow down. This doesn't only feel so good. It's my friend. Hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. So instead of just buying into well, you say the greatest injury of abuse isn't the act itself, but the shaming witness that follows. So people, make you feel, embarrassed about, having a vulnerable feeling or some kind of limitation.
exactly.
And and then you have these two, you mentioned the two beliefs, something is wrong with me and I don't matter. And these are what you call the hallmarks of shame.
Yeah. I'm thinking
Because no,
about, oh, I'm sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead. I was
I was going to
ready to
say,
interrupt.
because nobody acted as an unshaming witness for us, which is they didn't have your book. They didn't get to read your book on how to
Yeah.
do that.
And have a witness and have somebody who says, "Oh, you're nervous? I'm interested. I'm not trying to calm it. I'm not trying to tell you you shouldn't have it. Tell me about it. Let me know." And I'm thinking about who's the doctor who was the male uh, gym doctor for the gymnastics women's team, and he worked
Right.
for Michigan
Right.
State, or I can't remember. He abused all
Yeah.
these different women. He sexually violated all these women and girls, young
Right.
adolescent girls. And they had a date. He eventually went to court and was found guilty. And the judge said, I'm going to let any single person who wants to give a witness statement, a witness statement. You can speak up and you can use the courtroom as a healing container. She didn't say it that way, but that's what she was doing. And those women told stories, and I read and listened to tons of them. By the way, there were 160 women who came forward, and that wasn't all of them. And you know what those stories were? They weren't much about what he did. They were, I told this person, I told my mother and father, and they said he was a doctor, I should listen. And I told the university people, I told the university president and the deans there. By the way, I reported it to the FBI. By the way, I reported it to the other gymnastics people in the um, what do you call it, the Olympics organization. It was story after story about who they told. 20 years that went on before the man was prosecuted. So what's happening in the 20 years? The violence is the violence. It's disgusting. It's gross. It should be named, right? No bypassing. We're not saying that wasn't so bad. It was bad. And what the women wanted to say was, what happened when I told people who didn't believe me, who gaslighted me? What happened to me? My self-doubt, the way the pain went inside and I started manifesting symptoms, throwing up, eating disorders, suicidality, all of the relationship difficulties, tumors inside the body, expressions of all these things instead of an expression that went to somebody who said, I want to know. Tell me all of it. That
Right.
shame, what happens inside of them.
Right. Right. So, one of the aspects, one of the parts of our psyche that supports the shame is the inner critic, we call it.
Yeah.
I think everybody's got that to some extent. Are there any people that aren't plagued by an inner critic?
I've never met one. The people who are least plagued know about it. They
Mm-hmm.
know it's there.
Right.
They've wrestled with it. They've gotten into the dojo, whatever you would call that, wrestled with it enough where it's not only hurtful. Like there are certain things you could say to me, David, you're talking too much. That's not going to injure me. I've heard it so many times. So in that way, that certain criticisms don't go in, they don't penetrate because I'm used to them. I know them. I know what's true, what's not true. So my immune system is doing pretty well around that. But there are certain things that I haven't had a witness for, you might say, and then it might kind of go boom. So the people who do the best have a lot of awareness. I've been in this battle ring, in this dojo many times. We've even come out smiling about it, and I've got my lumps. That person is doing
Uh-huh.
very well relative to an inner critic.
Right. See,
The person who
you
says I
tell
don't have one is being ruled by it.
you instruct people to talk back to that inner critic. Describe that.
Yeah. So right now I have a inner critic. It is always running because it's always there. And it's the voice more or less of my father. He's been gone for 20 years. That doesn't stop the inner voice. And it's saying, David, you have a little bit of time. Paolo told you about the limit of time. Don't go so far. And you're being a little bit passionate. Calm down and relax and be more intellectual and not so furious about things. That's really going on. I wouldn't be able to make it up if it wasn't. And
Mm-hmm.
then if it gets me a little bit when I say it out loud. Then I think, you can respond, David. Put away my passion. That's me. If people don't like that, they don't want my medicine. They should go somewhere else. I should be the real thing. In fact, so that dialogue is a better dialogue than, oh boy, I'm really getting hurt today. Or if I don't know the critic is happening at all, I don't think I got criticized today. I just say, I don't know. I just didn't do a good job, Paul. Sorry. I really screwed up today, right? Now I'm believing the whole mess.
Wow. And you mentioned that shame sometimes is societal. It's trauma isn't just individual. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
cultural. How does that work? How can a culture act as an unshaming witness?
Yeah. A shaming or unshaming witness. It's, you were mentioned
Right,
something.
right. Shaming, yeah. How could it
Yeah.
operate as a shame? How does it operate? How does that work?
You mentioned something about men at the very beginning. My brain's not remembering the exact detail, but I was thinking about a man. I work with many men like this who came to me and said, I'm not getting a sufficient erection in my sexual performance. It's not good. I've tried very different things and it hasn't helped. Can you help me? Now, he has an idea shaped by the culture that says, you're a man, be ready, be hard, you should be turned on no matter what. And perform and produce and be hard and penetrate and produce pleasure.
Right.
Okay. Now this man is saying to me, listen to this detail that's so obvious, but it's missed. He's saying, I want to be hard, but I'm soft at times. That makes me almost weep. How come no one's saying, what's it like to be soft sometimes? No, it's a pathology. Where did he get that idea from? Well, people, but a whole culture that says Viagra is one of the biggest selling drugs on the planet. Literally, they're banking on that man, on me as a man, feeling ashamed of being hard, being soft rather, and thinking I should be hard. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And if
amazing.
I'm not hard, I should go support a company to give me a drug. Sometimes the drugs are good. I'm not against all drugs, but the psychology of it is what's wrong with me? Not like sometimes I'm soft, sweetheart, I'm tired. I think, can I just get a back rub? Maybe I'll get turned on later. Well, let's just schmooze a little bit because I've just had a hard day. I don't want to be hard and ready. Or I'm feeling tender about something. That would be a way expression of softness. What are you thinking? You laugh. Mhm.
Well, I'm just picturing that scenario, I mean, I think part of it is performance anxiety, which is it's a cultural expectation, right?
Yeah,
Like you're saying. Um, and so much shame comes from, that's just one example that involves the body, but body shame is the title of your chapter 7. And,
yeah,
it talks about the cultural fetishization of certain body types,
huge,
um, and how we can reclaim our body. We can
huge,
rebel against societal standards.
huge. So
Speak to
big.
that for,
So big for men, like I was saying in one example, there's so many examples. And then
yeah,
for women have their own flavor of that, right? By a culture. This is thin, this is pretty, this is attractive, this is not attractive, this is that, this is ugly, this is not lovable. Literally.
right,
I'm
right.
I look at my body, some women might say, and conclude that it makes sense that nobody would love me. Think about how deep that is. No one would love you? That's a pretty thought, but that's not a rare occasion. I think it's like the research says like 98% of women by like 14 years old have negative thoughts about their bodies every day. Not just negative, like that doesn't look so good, that hat on you, Paolo. Like that's disgusting. Don't you go out of the house like that. It's much more violent than that. And then what happens to the person? Then a whole $70 billion diet industry banks on that woman thing, this I really is something wrong with me. What should I eat? What shouldn't I eat? As opposed to what's my body doing? What am I really hungry for that I'm not getting anywhere else in the food? Questions that are interesting and meaningful, right? What are you so
Yeah,
hungry for? Do you feel safer in a bigger body because you've been sexually violated? I understand why you would get bigger. Men don't look at you. You feel safer in the world. That's not every woman's story, but there are stories like that. So we
yeah,
unshame and we kinda go, "Oh, this big body, that was intelligent." I'm putting quotes about that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I think a lot of the healing boils down to emotional intelligence. In other words,
beautiful.
there's certain feelings that we don't want to feel, and or that we're taught not to feel.
Yeah,
And you teach people how to listen to those rather than pathologize them.
yeah,
Um, and that's really, isn't that really what shame is, kind of a residue of this inability to look to deal with feelings?
yeah. It's more than the residue. That's one of the essential components of it for most people.
Hmm.
Somebody said something that hurt me. I got angry. Okay, relax. Don't be angry. Don't be upset. Forgive. Let go. But what about the anger? Maybe it needed it. Maybe I wouldn't speak back. Maybe I wouldn't tell you, my wife, I can't do that right now. I wouldn't say to you, I didn't like the way you just talked to me. I might need some of it, or I might not have been able to finish a book if I didn't have a little bit of, I want to say something. I'm upset about things. I needed some of that resource. So if we put it away, shame it, that's bad. I should forgive, let go. And I don't think maybe this is useful. This is important. This is an ally. This is medicine. This is life eros.
Right.
Then I lose access to that. Then I never write a book, by the way, Paolo. I've written 5. I never write a book because I needed a lot of force in me to get past the inner criticism that said, don't bother, you're not, just get a job and make some money. Don't bother writing books. Can't make money on
Hmm.
writing books. Whatever those
Right.
voices that were in me. It took a lot of oomph for me to get past that and actually finish a book. Yeah,
Tell us about how your own path of unshaming led you to create the Santa Fe Institute for Shame-Based Studies.
true. A deep question. One thing, one step after another is what happens in my unshaming process. Then this happens. Then I realize, oh, this is true. Then the next thing happens. And I realize this was true. I was teaching at a university for 8 years. And the people that I was working for, the higher ups in the university, said, when you are teaching in this class, are you talking about these issues? And I was like, yes. And you're teaching about this also? Yes. And they said, "That's not on the curriculum. We don't want you teaching those things. And if you're going to teach like that, we're going to say no more." And I got really, really upset. That's not fair. That's unjust. I think it was. But here's the deeper part of it. The deeper part of it was I was teaching what I wanted to teach and I didn't fit.
Right.
So so that leaves me, once I unshame it and stop getting upset about them, stop thinking maybe I should be teaching better. I think, oh, I'm firing myself. I'm doing what I'm not supposed to do. I'm firing myself. Maybe I should really
That's
go
it.
teach what I want to do. I should start my own and really teach that. Yeah.
Right.
So
So
that's
if
how
I
that.
talk about the relationship between shame and addictions. You have a thing called the radical view of addictions.
Yeah.
Can you summarize that?
Yeah. Addictions have a number of components, and I'm going to talk about one that's almost never talked about, and that is the valid, essential hunger for the experience the person is getting. Let's say it's a substance. I'm not saying a person should put needles in their arm and they could die, right? But the person is looking for something. Now, most people would say, yeah, they're looking to medicate themselves because they're in pain. No, not sufficient. Because if you ask the person, what's it like if a person's doing heroin, let's say, right? And they've been in the war and they're doing heroin, you say, oh, they're just medicating their pain. It was too painful. If you say, what's it like on the heroin? You're going to find a story and detail and connection that's going to happen that you wouldn't know any other way. One of my teachers, Mark Schupak, a Swiss psychologist, he said, addiction is like you looking for home, the deepest thing, the home, but you'll
Right.
find a hotel. It's not home, but it tastes and reminds you a little bit of home. So then the answer to the addiction is to help the person go home, not to figure out how to not do the substance. That's also good if it worked, but it almost never works, by the way. Substance treatment almost never works. What is the person really hungry for? And now I want to tell you a zillion stories to help make the point, but I want to make sure I stay within the time. Yeah,
I know that's very clear. Thank you.
yeah,
And I like the way that it's just another example of the way that you point out that unshaming. Um, Most people think of it as a removal or abating of a painful feeling, but in fact, you say it's a restoration.
yeah,
We unshame to free parts of ourselves that were buried, the
yeah.
the gold in the shadow, as it were.
Beautiful. Yeah.
That's
Like the
such a
story I
beautiful.
told about my stomach ache. Somebody would say, do something to make the stomach aches go away. That would be good. But the unshaming says, yes, do that. Care for yourself. Good. Eat differently and all kinds of things and be in less stress so that you don't have a stomach ache. And then, no, David, you are a powerful kid. You stopped the whole thing. Now,
Uh-huh.
if you could embody that stomach and know how much it knows, the
Yeah,
stomach, how bad it is, what to do about it, that everything needs to stop, don't push it away. As you're saying, come into contact with it. Whoa, now I know how to be more like my stomach, not less. That means everything stops. Wait a second. This is not
yeah,
okay, everybody. We have to deal with this before we go forward. My stomach taught me that.
yeah. That's great. You
Yeah.
point out that shame makes us hell bent on getting rid of something that we don't even really know yet. And your approach of applying curiosity and self-compassion is the antidote.
It's
And
incredible. I have so many people who've come to me saying, I've been so scared lately. I've been so scared. And I say, oh, can you feel the fear? Yeah, I feel it in my chest. Okay, feel it in your body. I feel it. What's happening? It's like shaking a little bit. Can you show me? And they take their hands and they start shaking. And I say, go ahead, let yourself shake more. And then they shake more. Go ahead and shake more. And pretty soon their hands are flailing, flailing. And I say, what's going on? I say, I'm freaking furious. Were they scared? Were they furious? Were they scared of their own fury? What, like, I'm scared does not describe what I just saw. Now, that wasn't a theory. Well, behind your fear is fury. They showed me that. They accessed something. So they had a
yeah,
word, and the word was very inaccurate and suppressive of the deeper experience. That's a person who's furious. Where did they learn to
yeah,
be? They were scared. Somebody told them that, and Now, if you hold all your fury in, then you look like a shaking, scared person.
Yeah. Understanding oneself, understanding oneself as a story is what you recommend instead of a pathology that
Yeah.
needs fixing, you know. And as you point out, this is potent, unshaming medicine. And I can't recommend anything more strongly than that people look at your book. And,
Mm.
you know, I want to thank you for being with us today. I mean, there's
Mm.
so much more that we could explore, but unfortunately, we have run out of time. But before we go, I want to be sure to tell our listeners about your website, which is www.davidbedrick.com. That's just all one word, David Bedrick, Bedrick.com. And for those who may be listening to Pathways live on a Sunday morning and have tuned in late, this is your host, Paul O'Brien, producer of the visionary I Ching Oracle, an app that supports great decisions and perfect timing. And we're so
Mm.
glad that you're with us today. Please note that you have the ability to review hundreds of interviews in our online archive at divination.com or on YouTube. And you can play and or share this program whenever you want via the internet or as a free podcast. Today we've been visiting with David Bedrick, author of The Unshaming Way, a compassionate guide to dismantling shame. Highly recommended reading. I want to say a heartfelt thank you to all of our listeners for tuning into Pathways, which is currently broadcast on KBOO FM in Portland, Oregon. And you can have a free subscription to our podcast, which you can also find at divination.com. That's spelled DIVI nation.com, or by searching Pathways Radio on Paulo's YouTube channel, where you can give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Please feel free to forward a link to your friends. And this is Paulo bidding you adieu and reminding you to tell your friends about Pathways Radio and podcasts. And thanks again to David Bedrick and to all of you listeners for tuning in and being a part of the Pathways conversation.